last time on Play Journal. The next video might take a while because I'm going to work on a video game, which is one of my hobbies. This video took a long time to make, mostly because I had to make the game first. I started on May 28th, and I finished, well, my last save was on July 18th. So now consider that that also took around 30 minutes to 4 hours a day. I skipped 3 days because life got in the way, but that was quite a commitment, and it took more time than I expected. I was hoping to get it done in 3 weeks, and that's just the way it went. So here's the title screen of my game, To Err is Human. But before I do a playthrough of a couple of levels, I wanted to remind you that you can always check out the video description below to jump around to the various chapters if a section isn't particularly interesting for you. You'll also find every link referenced in the video, including links to download my game, Clickteam Fusion, and its tutorials. This video is going to have a few different but related topics. I'll start off with a playthrough, but then I'm going to talk about how I came up with the concept for this game. I'm also going to share my thoughts about why I think making a video game is such a rewarding form of recreation. Then I'm going to discuss the history of Clickteam's game creation software and give you a quick tour of what they're like to use. Finally, I'll tell you how you could get started or perhaps motivate someone else to get into the hobby, especially kids. That's enough chatter. Let me show you the first 2 levels of my game. Okay, here we go. So notice we have these different air layers, these air currents, and every once in a while they change direction semi-randomly. And we have 2 enemies, the propeller plane and the balloon. Notice that they follow the same rules with the wing currents. Oh, they just collided. So yeah, most of the things that are in the air follow the same rules. The air current changes again. That'll help me get by this mountain, which will hurt you if you collide with it. So this has not been very challenging so far, but I have been delighted that this game has been challenging for me. Every once in a while I get surprised despite knowing all the ins and outs of the game. I can't score 100 anytime I want. Sometimes I don't get past level 3. I think that's a good sign. Now, this is a pretty tame level. I've had situations where I've been just bombarded with balloons at the same time. There's one. Uh-oh. Yeah, see the air current is going to take me to the mountain, and there's the yellow arrow. There was a yellow arrow in the beginning telling you to go to the right, and then there was one telling you to go to the left. Scoring is pretty simple. If you make it to the landing site on the right, you can earn up to 20 points. You lose 5 points if you're late, and you lose 5 points if your balloon doesn't have max health. It does get repaired for 1 point when you get to the next level, though. I'm going to go through one more level. There's that arrow telling you to go to the right. So each level introduces a new enemy or obstacle. Let's see when the new one shows up. Usually shows up by now. There will be at least one, the new enemy type. Notice that those sounds are when you use fuel to go up, or when you let hot air out of the balloon to go down. Oh, there we go, that's the new enemy type. That's the country fellow, shooting his gun in the air like you just don't care. Now they're coming in force. This has been a relatively easy run, but the game does get more difficult as the levels go on. And there's the yellow arrow, there's the landing site. And I just enough time to land, more than enough. And there we are. I'm going to end this here because I want you to play it. This game has 5 levels, and each level introduces a new enemy. By the end, it's like a ridiculous disaster movie. I have scored 100 on the game once, but even if you can't, try to complete all 5 levels to unlock the bonus mode, which is really just a quick gag, but that quick gag took me 2 days to make. So I had the idea for this game after watching a Mark Rober video about how hot air balloons steer. A particular graphic in his video instantly inspired me to make a game about a hot air balloon. Once that seed was planted, I wrote it down and over the course of months mulled over how it would play. As time went on, I'd jot down notes in a file as they occurred to me. And a couple of weeks before actually programming it, I started writing down exactly how it would work. And here we are. Now, why am I showcasing video game creation as a type of recreation? As I said in one of my first videos, recreation can offer a few things. In this case, making a video game checks off the boxes of skill mastery and timelessness. As I mentioned before, I spent anywhere from 30 minutes to 4 hours a day when working on this game. And it wasn't torture. I was just completely engaged in the activity. As far as skill mastery goes, a creative project like this takes effort, and the more you do it, the better you get. And when you finish, you get a big sense of achievement. Sharing the results with friends, family, and the general public is an added bonus. Now let's look at Clickteam and talk about its history and its community. It all started with a product aimed at kids called Klik and Play that was released in 1994. It was very kid-friendly because, unlike a programming language where you have to know the syntax, it focused more on symbols than text, and it came with lots of graphics, music, and sound effects. It also attracted the attention of adults. I was in my early 20s, but there were users who ranged in age from 10 to 50. Communities developed around the software, and they were amazing. People of all ages were sharing their creations, asking for help, giving help, and providing feedback. With time, Klik and Play evolved. At its core, it kept its visual design philosophy, yet it kept adding increased control and functionality. The first upgrade, that's a different product, but an upgrade, was called the Games Factory. Then it became Multimedia Fusion, and today it's called Clickteam Fusion, and it's up to version 2.5. And it has become a much more serious tool. Some people are actually selling what they make. Heard of Five Nights at Freddy's? That was made with a Clickteam product. Let's take a look inside Fusion to get an idea of how it works. Since this video is just meant to spark your interest, you're not going to learn how to use it, but you'll get an idea. So here we are in Clickteam Fusion. This is a developer 2.5 version. You're going to use the free version, which is limited, but still very, very functional. You'll get to do a lot with it, and you could test out what you do within the editor, and you could save it to HTML5, but you don't need to know that now. Anyway, this is the editor. Here's the workplace toolbar. There's the title of the game. The project is To Err is Human. And these two things below it are frames. So frames are like play areas or screens you could think of. So there is the title screen. And here is the game screen. That should look familiar. But we're going to work just on the title screen. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you how the clouds move and how a special effect is done. So first, just to understand, the cloud is an object. So here it is in the left-hand panel where it says Properties. And if you go into the cloud, you can see the editor. And that's what the cloud looks like. Now, there are several directions the cloud could face, and that determines what the cloud looks like. So I painted these by hand. So that is the cloud object. And this is the title object, which I simply made in another program. Now, this checkerboard pattern that you see is invisible ink. which means that anything will show that's behind it. And there we go, that's the title. So now we're going to go, this is the frame editor, by the way. So the frame editor lets you see the frames. But this is the event editor. So I want you to pay attention to this line here, the event editor, number 3, that says, this event moves clouds downward. Now, these are events, so things that happen, things that occur. Now, the event here on line 4 is every 300th of a second. And then we go across, and these are the different objects that are in the frame. So these are always, special conditions are always there, the sound is always there, storyboard, these are always available. You can always manipulate them in any frame. But here is the cloud object that I added. And this is the action that's happening when the event triggers. So when the event triggers, it's going to set the Y position to the Y position of the cloud where it was last, +3, for every cloud object on the screen. Now, +3 means that the Y position is 0 at the top of the frame, and at the bottom it goes to 720. So wherever it is going to note that Y position and add 3 to it. It does it every 300th of a second, and that creates the illusion of downward movement. Now, here on 5, by the way, these part where there's just written text, that's a comment. And the comment is just for my benefit to help me understand what I did. So if I don't look at this for a while, I'll be like, hey, how did this work? And it'll explain what it's for. So this event sends some clouds behind the title. Now, I'm going to show you later, but I did this because I wanted to create some sort of visual interest, some sort of depth, where some of the clouds were behind the title and some of the clouds are in front. And this happens in game 2 with the balloon. You'll see that sometimes the balloon appears in front of a cloud, sometimes it goes behind the cloud, but the cloud is semi-transparent. It's visually interesting, it's a little extra. And the events for this are every 2 seconds, if the Y position of the cloud is less than or equal to 50, which basically means towards the top of the screen, pick one of the clouds that meet those conditions. So it won't pick every one, it'll pick one of them every 2 seconds. And that's important because we want some clouds to be in front because they're newly created and they'll be ahead of the title. And then we want to shift some to the back. And what happens? We look at the cloud and we see the check mark underneath it. Now see this thing here, set check to 1, unnecessary. I forgot that was a strategy that I didn't need anymore because these events were enough. Anyway, it says move behind object, and what's the object? We can look at the icon, and it's the title. So the title is to err is human. So it will, every 2 seconds, select one of the clouds that meet this condition of being towards the top of the screen, and it'll then move it behind the object. Let's take a look. We can run it in the editor right here. It says run frame, or we can run the whole project. Let's run the frame. And there we are. So these clouds are there. That one went behind. And you can see some of the clouds go behind the title and some go in front, just the way it was programmed to. So that's just to give you a little bit of insight into how you get things done with Clickteam Fusion. If you want to get started making games, I provided links in the video description to download the limited free version of Clickteam Fusion. I've also provided links to their tutorial page, their forum, and a site called the Daily Click that has games and a forum of its own. You will need these forums and possibly Reddit because you will have questions. Understand that as much of a boost as this software gives you, you still need to understand logic. You need to know how to use terms like greater than, less than, and equal to. You need to know what an integer is. You need to know how to use an XY coordinate system because that's how you describe where objects are on the screen. You need to know the order of operations, and depending on what you're making, you'll need some ability with art, music, sound effects, and writing. There's no telling which skills you'll need to develop in order to reach your goal. Now, maybe you're not interested in making a video game, but you know someone who is, particularly kids. This is a great opportunity to have them use the skills that they've acquired in school for their own purpose, to make a video game if that's their interest. Or you could look at it the other way. You could say, hey, if you really want to make video games, if that's your dream, you need to start paying attention to what they have to offer in school. So you could use it as an incentive. So are you going to give it a try, or are you going to encourage someone else to give it a try? I'd love your feedback in the comments if you actually played the game. I'm really curious if anybody got to level 5 and what you thought of the bonus mode. I hope to see you in the comments. Thanks. Bye.